A little girl had been missing for weeks. When she was found, she was walking alone on a dirt road, dirty and scared. A luxury car almost ran her over, but the driver, a millionaire known for his coldness, slammed on the brakes just in time. As he got out to help her, he had no idea that this encounter would change everything. And even less that, upon discovering who the girl's mother was, he would fall to his knees, weeping, revealing a past buried for years. Subscribe to the channel for stories that touch your heart every day. The millionaire adjusted the gold Rolex on his wrist as he watched the landscape pass by the tinted window of his limousine. Green fields and farms gave way to dirt roads as they moved away from the city. He hated taking this back road, but his driver had insisted it would be faster due to the traffic jam on the highway. "How much longer until we get there?" he asked, not hiding the irritation in his voice. "About 40 minutes, sir," the driver replied, keeping his eyes fixed on the uneven road. The millionaire sighed. Every minute lost meant money wasted. His mind was already calculating the losses from this delay for the meeting with foreign investors. He loosened his Italian silk tie slightly and checked his messages on his state-of-the-art smartphone again. That's when it all happened. "Watch. Autumn," the millionaire shouted as he noticed a small silhouette in the middle of the road. The driver slammed on the brakes. The car skidded on the loose dirt, raising a cloud of dust that enveloped the vehicle. When the dust settled, they saw a child standing in front of them, eyes wide like those of a cornered animal. A little girl. "My God, we almost hit that kid," the driver muttered, his breathing quickening. The millionaire, normally cold and calculating, felt something strange in his chest as he observed the small figure through the glass. The girl looked to be about 5 years old. Her hair was matted, her clothes torn and dirty. Her face, marked by dried tears and dirt, held an expression of pure terror. "Stay here," he ordered the driver as he opened the door. As he got out of the car, the millionaire felt the stifling heat of the afternoon. The girl took 2 steps back as he approached. Her bare feet were injured, with small cuts and blisters. "Hello," he said, trying to soften his usually authoritative voice. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl didn't answer. She just stared at him with deep, distrustful eyes, hugging her own body as if that could protect her. "Where are your parents?" the millionaire asked, observing the deserted road in both directions. Silence. Only the wind moving the dust around. Them. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" he insisted, crouching down to be at the child's height. The girl was trembling visibly now, despite the heat. Her parched lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. The millionaire noticed purple marks on her slender arms, marks he knew well from his own distant childhood. "Are you hungry?" he asked in a softer tone. For the first time, the girl reacted, a small, affirmative nod. Her eyes, previously distrustful, now showed a spark of hope. "I have water and some crackers in the car. You can come with me if you want." The millionaire held out his hand, but didn't get any closer. He let the girl decide. To his surprise, after long seconds of hesitation, the small, dirty hand found his. It was so small, so fragile. Something within him, dormant for years, seemed to awaken with that simple touch. As he guided her to the car, he noticed how she limped slightly. Each step seemed painful on her injured feet. The millionaire, used to seeing people as mere numbers in spreadsheets, felt a strange urge to carry her in his arms. He restrained himself. The girl was already scared enough. "We're going to take her to a hospital," he decided, as the driver opened the back door of the limousine. At that moment, the millionaire didn't know that his life, built on foundations of power and coldness, was about to crumble. He had no idea that this lost child on the road would be the beginning of a journey that would stir up deep wounds and long-buried secrets. The private hospital belonged to one of the millionaire's many ventures. A single call was enough to mobilize the best medical team. In the waiting room, he paced back and forth, repeatedly checking his watch. The meeting with the investors had already been cancelled, something that had never happened before in his career. "Sir?" The chief physician approached with a clipboard in her hands. "Can we talk about the girl?" The millionaire nodded, leading her to a more private corner of the hallway. "She's dehydrated and malnourished. She has abrasions on her feet and several bruises in different stages of healing on her body," the doctor reported, with a grave expression. "Some appear to have been caused by falls. Others—" She paused significantly. "By abuse," the millionaire completed, feeling a wave of anger rise within him. "Exactly. We've already notified the authorities. The social worker is on their way." The millionaire straightened his posture, returning to his usual state of control. "Did she say anything? Name? Where she came from?" "Just the first name. Sophia. We haven't been able to get her last name or any information about her family. She's extremely scared and only communicates with nods or monosyllables." Sophia. The name echoed strangely in the millionaire's mind, a name he hadn't heard for years since— "Can I see her?" he asked, interrupting his own train of thought. The doctor hesitated. "Normally, we would only allow family members, but considering that you were the one who brought her in—" The room was silent, except for the constant beep of the monitors. The girl seemed even smaller in the hospital bed, with IV tubes connected to her thin arm. When the millionaire entered, she stared at him with watchful eyes, as if expecting some threat to emerge at any moment. "Hello, Sophia," he said, testing the name. "Do you remember me from the car on the road?" The girl nodded. The millionaire noticed that, clean and with her wounds treated, she revealed delicate features. There was something in her gaze that seemed strangely familiar. "Can you tell me where you live? Or your mother's name?" Sophia looked away, fixing her gaze on her own small hands that were clutching the sheet. "People were yelling," she whispered almost inaudibly, "and hitting." The millionaire's heart, which many said was made of stone, contracted painfully. "No one is going to yell or hit you here," he assured, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "You're safe now." Sophia raised her eyes, studying him as if trying to decide if she could trust him. "Promise?" she asked, her voice fragile. "I promise," the millionaire replied, surprising himself with his own conviction. A comfortable silence settled between them. The millionaire realized that his phone had rung several times, but for the first time in years, he didn't bother to check. "Idim, are you going to send me back?" The question was loaded with fear. "No," he replied without hesitation. "I'm not going to send you back to a place where people yell and hit." The girl's small shoulders relaxed visibly. Her eyes, previously tense, began to succumb to fatigue. "I'm sleepy," Sophia murmured. "Then sleep. I'll be here when you wake up." The words left his mouth before he could think. The millionaire, known for never making promises he couldn't fulfill with money or power, had just committed to something he wasn't sure he could control. The Child Protective Services would probably take her to a temporary shelter while they investigated her background. But as he watched Sophia fall asleep with a peaceful expression for the first time since he had found her, he knew he would do whatever it took to keep his promise, even if it meant using all his influence and resources. Outside the room, his assistant waited for him with an anxious expression. "I want you to hire the best private investigators," the millionaire ordered. "We need to find out who this girl is and where she came from, and I want results fast." "Yes, sir. And what about the merger documents that were supposed to be signed today?" The millionaire looked one last time into the room where Sophia slept. "They can wait." 3 days passed. The millionaire set up a temporary office at the hospital, to the despair of his executives. The local news networks were already speculating about his sudden disappearance from business circles, creating rumors about possible financial troubles in his conglomerates. "The stock is down 2 points since yesterday," his CFO informed him, showing charts on a tablet. "Investors are nervous about your absence." The millionaire watched Sophia through the window of the hospital room as the therapist tried to get her to draw. The girl remained withdrawn, responding minimally to stimuli. "Issue a statement. Say that I'm on a strategic retreat planning the next expansion," he ordered without taking his eyes off the child. "Sir, with all due respect, that's not enough. We need your physical presence at the board meetings. This situation is taking too much time." The millionaire turned slowly, facing his CFO with the icy stare that made subordinates tremble. "This situation, as you call it, has a name. She's a child who was abused and abandoned, and until we find out exactly what happened, I will remain personally involved." The executive paled, but risked one last attempt. "You've never been involved in social causes before. We have a foundation to handle these issues. Why does this particular girl matter so much?" The question hit the millionaire like a punch to the gut. Why indeed? Why had he cancelled important appointments, slept poorly, and stayed in that hospital for 3 days because of a child he didn't even know? What was it about her that prevented him from simply delegating the case to the appropriate authorities, as he normally would? "Get out," he ordered the director, "and cancel my appointments for the rest of the week." Alone, the millionaire closed, his eyes feeling the exhaustion of the last few days. Images of the past flooded his mind. A woman with a gentle smile, a love he believed would be eternal, and then the accident, the empty funeral, with no body to bury. The days plunged into alcohol and overwork that followed. The soft touch on his arm brought him back to the present. Sophia was standing in front of him, holding a drawing. "For you," she said, holding out the paper. The drawing showed 2 stick figures, one small and one large, holding hands. "It's you and me," Sophia explained, pointing to the figures, "in the big car." Something warm and unfamiliar spread through the millionaire's chest. "Thank you," he replied, his voice slightly hoarse. "It's very beautiful." Sophia smiled shyly, the first smile he had seen since he found her. "The doctor said I'm going to a place with other kids tomorrow," she commented, with the smile disappearing. "I don't want to go." The temporary shelter. It was standard procedure while investigations into her origin continued. The millionaire knew this, but still, the news bothered him more than it should. "You promised," Sophia reminded him, her pleading eyes fixed on his. "I know," he replied, kneeling down to be at her height. "And I'm going to keep my promise, but I need a little more time." The social worker appeared in the doorway, observing the interaction with an analytical expression. "Sir, can we talk for a moment?" she called. In the hallway, the woman was direct. "You seem to have developed a bond with the child." "I'm just ensuring her well-being," he replied defensively. "I understand, but I need to warn you. Establishing emotional bonds in these cases can be harmful, both for the child and for you. When we find her family, what if they're the ones responsible for the abuse?" The millionaire interrupted, his voice tense. The social worker sighed. "That's why we investigate carefully. In the meantime, the shelter is the most appropriate place for her." The millionaire ran a hand through his hair in a rare gesture of frustration. What if I offered to be her temporary guardian?" The words came out before he could contain them. The idea was absurd. He, who lived in constant meetings and travels, who barely spent time in his own mansion, taking care of a traumatized child? The social worker studied him for a few moments. "That would require a formal process, evaluations, home visits, background checks." "Do whatever is necessary," he said, surprising himself with the determination in his voice. Later, sitting alone in his car, while the driver waited, the millionaire stared at the child's drawing in his hands. Why was he doing this? Why couldn't he simply return to his organized and predictable life? The answer came like a whisper from the past, because Sophia had the same eyes as her, the same eyes as the woman he had loved and lost 7 years ago. The millionaire carefully folded the drawing and put it in the inside pocket of his suit jacket, close to the heart that everyone believed to be made of ice. A week later, after an intense bureaucratic process expedited by strategic influence, the millionaire personally drove his luxury sports car through the gates of the mansion. In the passenger seat, Sophia watched with wide eyes the imposing property that stretched for acres. The main house, a modern structure of glass and steel, reflected the afternoon sun like a crystal palace. "Is this where you live?" she asked, her face pressed against the window. "Yes," the millionaire replied, observing his home through the child's eyes. Suddenly, the place seemed cold and impersonal, like an architecture showroom instead of a home. As he parked in front of the main entrance, he saw his housekeeper and part of the household staff lined up waiting, as they always did when he returned from trips. He had given specific instructions to prepare the house for Sophia's arrival, but now he realized how inadequate it all seemed for a child. "Let's go," he said, helping her out of the car. Sophia firmly clutched the small backpack with the few clothes donated by the hospital as if it were her most precious possession. The housekeeper, a middle-aged woman with a rigid and efficient posture, stepped forward to greet them. "Welcome back, sir. The guest room on the east wing has been adapted as per your instructions." The millionaire nodded, noticing how Sophia hid partially behind him, intimidated by the formality of the reception. "This is Sophia," he introduced. "She'll be staying with us for a while." The staff greeted the girl with polite but clearly uncomfortable smiles. The presence of a child was something completely new in that house, where everything functioned with mechanical precision. As they walked through the marble hallways and past rooms decorated with expensive contemporary artwork, the millionaire realized how strange and frightening the place must seem to Sophia. There were no vibrant colors, toys, or any indication that a child could be welcome there. The room prepared for her was spacious and luxurious, with a king-size bed that made Sophia look even smaller. The light grey walls and minimalist decor maintained the aesthetic of the rest of the house. "It's very big," Sophia commented, standing in the middle of the room, looking lost. The millionaire realized his mistake. How could a child who had probably slept in poor conditions feel comfortable in that sterile environment? "We can change the decor," he suggested. "Choose colors that you like, buy toys." Sophia carefully placed her backpack on the immaculate bed. "Can I really choose?" she asked with distrust. "Of course," the millionaire replied, feeling a strange emotion as he saw the glint of expectation in her eyes. "What color would you like for the walls?" Sophia thought for a moment, biting her lower lip. "Blue," she finally answered, "like the sky." That same night, after dinner served formally in the huge dining room, another clearly disconcerting experience for Sophia. The millionaire made a call he never imagined making. He hired an interior designer specializing in children's rooms, with instructions to completely transform the room the next day. Later, as he passed through the hallway, he heard sobs coming from Sophia's room. He stopped, uncertain. Dealing with emotions had never been his strong suit. In business, coldness and rationality were his best tools. But now, the girl's soft crying awakened in him an inexplicable need to offer comfort. He knocked gently on the door before entering. Sophia was curled up on the huge bed, hugging the pillow. "Is everything all right?" he asked, keeping his distance. "I had a nightmare," Sophia whispered, wiping the tears with the back of her hands. They were looking for me again. The millionaire felt a lump in his throat. Who were they? The detectives hadn't yet found concrete information about Sophia's origin. No one is going to find you here, he assured, approaching hesitantly. This house has maximum security. Sophia watched him for a moment, then asked something that caught him completely off guard. Don't you have any children? The question hit a wound that had never completely healed. No, he replied after a pause. I never had any. And your wife? I don't have one either, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed, carefully maintaining space between them. I live alone. Why? The child's curiosity was direct, without the social filters of adults. The millionaire considered giving a vague answer, as he did when journalists questioned his personal life. But something in Sophia's attentive eyes demanded honesty. There was someone a long time ago, he explained, feeling the words weigh him down. But she's gone. Did she die? Sophia asked, with the disconcerting frankness of children. Yes, he replied, although the truth was more complicated. There was never a body to confirm the death, only evidence of a devastating accident. It was 7 years ago. Sophia held out her small hand and, to the millionaire's surprise, touched his in a gesture of comfort. My mom is gone too, she said, with a sad wisdom beyond her age. But sometimes I dream that she comes back to get me. The millionaire felt something break inside his meticulously shielded chest. With a hesitant movement, he adjusted the blanket around Sophia. Try to get some more sleep, he suggested, his voice soft. Tomorrow will be a new day. As he left the room, he realized that there was something fundamentally different about his house, something that money hadn't bought, that power hadn't conquered. The sound of another breath, the presence of another soul under the same roof. A presence that inexplicably was beginning to fill the void he had carried for so long. 2 weeks turned into a month. Sophia's presence altered the mansion in ways that the millionaire could never predict. Her room, now painted in a soft shade of sky blue, contained shelves with children's books, carefully selected toys, and a rocking chair where, surprisingly, he himself sat every night to read stories before bed. The millionaire's relentlessly timed routine had been completely reorganized. Important meetings were rescheduled to allow him to be present at breakfast with Sophia. Video conferences replaced business trips, and for the first time in years, he regularly had dinner at home instead of the exclusive restaurants he used to frequent. Have the detectives found anything new? Asked his personal assistant during a rare visit from him to the central office. The millionaire observed the photos on the screen, blurry images from security cameras showing a woman entering a domestic violence shelter with a small child about 6 months ago. The quality was poor, but there was an undeniable resemblance to Sophia. Were you able to identify the woman? He asked, feeling his heart race. Not yet. The shelter refuses to provide information without a court order, citing privacy and security policies. We're working on it. The millionaire nodded, absorbing the information. If Sophia had really been in a domestic violence shelter, it would explain her fear and the signs of abuse. But how did she end up alone on that road? Continue investigating, but with discretion, he ordered. I don't want reporters or busybodies involved in this. Back at the mansion, he found Sophia in the backyard, where a small area had been transformed into a children's space with swings and slides. The housekeeper, who had initially shown reservations about the child's presence, now smiled gently as she supervised the play. How is she adjusting? The millionaire asked. Surprisingly well, sir, the housekeeper replied. She's a remarkably resilient child. Today, she even asked to help water the flowers. Sophia waved from the top of the slide, her face illuminated by a genuine smile. That smile provoked a strange sensation in the millionaire's chest, a mixture of joy and fear. Joy at seeing her happy, fear because he knew that situation was temporary. At any moment, relatives could be discovered and she would be taken away. The idea caused a physical pain that he couldn't explain. During dinner, Sophia seemed especially talkative, telling about the birds she had seen in the garden. The millionaire listened attentively, marveling at her ability to find joy in simple things, even after everything she had been through. "Can I ask you a question?" Sophia asked while playing with her dessert. "Of course," he replied. "Are you my dad now?" The question caught him completely off guard. The millionaire felt his heart skip a beat. "Why do you ask that?" he managed to say after a moment of silence. Sophia shrugged with the disconcerting innocence of children. "The teacher at the new school said that all children have a mom and dad, and you take care of me like a dad." The private school had been another recent adaptation, an attempt to normalize Sophia's life while her case was under investigation. "It's complicated," the millionaire replied, carefully choosing his words. "Legally, I'm your temporary guardian." Sophia frowned, clearly not understanding the term. "That means I take care of you for now," he explained, "while we look for your family." Sophia's face paled suddenly. Her fork fell onto the plate with a clatter. "I don't want to go back," she said, her voice trembling. "Please don't send me back." Before the millionaire could answer, the phone rang. It was the head of the detective team with urgent news. "We found a match in the national database," he informed. "A woman checked into a hospital in critical condition 3 days ago. The medical record states that she has a 5-year-old daughter named Sophia, who has been missing for approximately a month." The millionaire felt the world stop. Her name? When he heard the answer, the phone almost slipped from his hand. It was a name he knew very well, a name that belonged to someone he believed had been dead for 7 years. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Sir, is everything all right?" The detective's worried voice sounded distant. "Send me the hospital address. I'm going immediately." Hanging up the phone, the millionaire looked at Sophia, who was watching him with frightened eyes. Suddenly, he saw what he hadn't been able to see before: the subtle similarities, the curve of the smile, the shape of the eyes. Were they coincidences, or was there something deeper connecting them? "I have to leave for a few hours," he said to the girl, trying to keep his voice steady despite the emotional storm that ravaged him from within. "I promise I'll be back soon." Sophia ran to hug him, something she had never done before. The simple gesture broke the millionaire's last defenses, who returned the hug tightly, feeling an inexplicable certainty that nothing in his life would be the same after that night. The public hospital was located in an outlying area of the city, far from the medical centers of excellence that the millionaire used to frequent. On the way, his private driver tried to remain calm while he obsessively checked the information sent by the detective. A blurred photograph of the hospitalized patient almost stopped his heart. Even pale and visibly weakened, the features were unmistakable. Those eyes, the same eyes as Sophia, the same eyes he had last seen 7 years ago, before the supposed accident that had taken her from his life. "Faster," he ordered the driver, unable to contain the anxiety that consumed him. Upon arriving at the hospital, he ignored the curious glances that his imposing figure in expensive clothes provoked in that simple environment. At the reception desk, his influence opened doors that would normally remain closed to ordinary visitors at that time of night. "Room 307, informed the head nurse after verifying his identification. "But I must warn you that the patient is very weak. The doctor only allows brief visits." The hallway seemed endless. Each step brought him closer to a truth that could completely redefine his existence. As he stopped in front of the door to room 307, the millionaire felt something. He hadn't experienced in years genuine fear. He took a deep breath and entered. The woman in the bed was almost unrecognizable compared to the vibrant image he kept in his memories. Too thin, with her face marked by subtle scars, dull hair, and an alarming pallor. But it was her, undeniably her. "Sophia," he whispered, using her name for the first time in 7 years. The woman's eyes opened slowly. When she recognized him, an expression of shock and disbelief took over her weakened face. "No, it's not possible," she murmured, her voice weak. "You can't be here." The millionaire approached the bed, his legs barely supporting the weight of his body. Every certainty he had built about his life over the past 7 years crumbled before that impossible reality. "You're alive," he said, the words coming out in gasps. "All this time, you were alive." Tears began to stream down her face, a face he had mourned as lost forever. "They told me you knew," she replied between sobs, "that you had agreed, that it was better this way." "Who said that? What are you talking about?" Confusion mixed with the overwhelming emotion. "Your partner. He said you wanted to get rid of me, that the scandal would hurt your business, that you paid for me to disappear." The millionaire felt as if he had taken a physical blow. His former partner, the man who had taken over the business while he sank into mourning, had orchestrated everything. "I never—" His voice faltered. "I looked for you for months. I hired search teams. I identified remains that I was told were yours." Understanding began to take shape in her eyes. "It was all a lie, for both of us." "It seems so," he replied, the anger growing along with an almost unbearable pain. "But why didn't you try to contact me afterwards?" She looked away. "He threatened me. He said that if I tried to come back, you would be harmed. And then," she hesitated, "then I found out I was pregnant." The world seemed to stop spinning. The millionaire needed to lean on the edge of the bed to avoid falling. "Pregnant? 2 months along when everything happened. I didn't know, I hadn't told anyone yet." The revelation hit him like a tsunami, destroying the last barriers of his carefully constructed composure. "A daughter," he whispered, the pieces finally falling into place. "Our daughter." "Sophia," confirmed the woman, with silent tears streaming down her face. "I gave her my name to maintain some connection with the past, to never forget who I was before I was forced to become someone else." The millionaire fell to his knees beside the bed, something he had never done in his entire life. The man who commanded financial empires with a firm hand was now completely broken, exposed in his deepest vulnerability. "How?" It was all he could ask, his voice choked with emotion. "He kept me hidden until the birth," she explained, her voice weak. "Then he handed me over to a man, a violent man who needed a wife to keep up appearances. It was like a prison. For 5 years." She paused, catching her breath. "I managed to escape with Sophia a few months ago. We were living in a shelter for battered women when he found us. I managed to help Sophia escape, but he captured me. And Sophia ended up alone on that road," completed the millionaire, remembering the day he had almost run over the small, frightened figure. "Fate has a cruel sense of humor," she murmured with a sad smile. "Of all the cars on that deserted road, it was mine that stopped," he concluded, feeling the weight of the coincidence, or was it providence, that had reunited father and daughter without them knowing. The woman tried to sit up, but a fit of coughing forced her back down, revealing how weakened her body was. "What's wrong?" the millionaire asked, alarmed. "Pneumonia aggravated by chronic malnutrition," she replied after catching her breath. "The doctors aren't very optimistic." "I'm going to transfer you to the best hospital immediately," he declared, already grabbing his phone. "We'll get the best specialists, experimental treatments, whatever is necessary." She touched his hand, stopping him. "Before that, Sophia, how is she? Did you find her by chance, or—" "She's fine," assured the millionaire, holding her hand delicately, as if fearing she might break at his touch. "She's safe in my house. She has a blue room, like the sky, and she's adjusting despite everything." A sigh of relief escaped the woman's lips. "She asks about you every day," he continued. "She says she dreams about the day her mother will come to get her." Fresh tears welled up in her eyes. "I fought so hard to keep her safe," she whispered, "so that she would have a chance to be happy." The millionaire felt his own vision blur with tears held back for years. "And now she has," he replied, his voice choked. "She has me, and she'll have you too. We're going to fix this together." At that moment, all that mattered was in that simple hospital room. The woman he had never stopped loving, and the promise of a future with the daughter he didn't know he had. A future that he would build with all his power and resources, whatever the cost. The transfer to the private hospital was just the beginning. In a matter of days, specialists from 3 different countries were consulted on the case. The millionaire mobilized his fortune and influence in a race against time to save the woman he had lost and rediscovered in such an extraordinary way. Sophia, on the other hand, still didn't know the complete truth. The millionaire decided to wait until her mother was a little stronger before revealing the connection between them. But the girl felt that something had changed. Her guardian seemed different, more emotional, more present, yet constantly worried. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" Sophia asked one night as he adjusted the blanket around her. "Like what?" he replied, caught off guard. "Like you're looking for something." "On my face," she explained, with the impressive insight she sometimes demonstrated. The millionaire hesitated, struggling between the truth and protection. "Just thinking about how special you are," he said finally, opting for a partial truth. Sophia smiled, satisfied with the answer, but something in her eyes, the same eyes as her mother, suggested that she sensed there was more behind those words. The next morning brought disturbing news. The former partner, now under secret investigation, had discovered about the woman's hospitalization and the millionaire's involvement. The threats were not long in coming. First subtle, then explicit. Lawsuits, allegations of corporate fraud, manipulation of evidence. "He's desperate," concluded the millionaire's lawyer after analyzing the situation. "He knows that if the truth comes out, he will face serious criminal charges. And he's going to try to destroy us before we can expose him," completed the millionaire, the cold anger replacing the initial shock. What he didn't foresee was the speed of the counterattack. That same afternoon, while he was at the hospital, with Sophia's mother, he received an urgent call from the housekeeper. "Sir," her voice trembled, "there are police officers and a social worker here. They say they have a warrant to take the girl." The millionaire's blood ran cold in his veins. "Don't let them take her," he ordered, already running to the car. "My lawyer will be there in 15 minutes. But when he arrived home, it was too late. In the entryway, his lawyer was arguing heatedly with the officers, while Sophia, with her eyes red from crying, was being led by a woman in a suit out of the mansion. "What's happening here?" demanded the millionaire, his voice full of authority. An officer stepped forward, handing him a document. "We have a formal complaint alleging that you obtained temporary guardianship by providing false information. And there are accusations that the child may be at risk. This is absurd." The millionaire rarely lost his composure, but now he struggled to maintain control. "Who filed this complaint?" "The source is confidential," the officer replied with an impassive expression. "But we have witnesses who claim that you have never shown interest in social causes or child welfare before." There are suspicions about your motives. Sophia ran to him, hugging his legs tightly. Don't let them take me, she begged, her face awash with tears. You promised. The millionaire knelt down, placing himself at her height, ignoring the officers around him. Sophia, listen, he said, holding her small shoulders firmly but gently. This is just a misunderstanding. I'm going to sort everything out, and you'll be home very soon. I promise? She asked between sobs. I promise, he replied, fighting against the lump in his own throat. And this time, I have an even more special reason to keep my promise. The social worker approached. We need to go now. The child will be in state custody while the case is investigated. Can I at least get some of her things? Asked the millionaire, trying to buy time while his brain frantically searched for a solution. We've already packed the essentials, replied the woman, with bureaucratic efficiency that infuriated him. When Sophia was finally let out, screaming his name, the millionaire felt something break inside himself. The same piercing pain he had felt years ago when he believed he had lost the woman he loved. Now he was losing the daughter he had barely begun to know. This won't stand, he promised the lawyer as soon as they were alone. Mobilize every resource possible. I want my daughter back before nightfall. Daughter? The lawyer stared at him, surprised by the choice of words. The millionaire realized what he had said, and for the first time in days, a bitter smile appeared on his lips. Yes, my daughter, he confirmed, determination replacing despair. And I have proof of that. Now, as the lawyer left to arrange the necessary documents, the millionaire climbed the stairs to Sophia's room. The room, once so alive with her presence, seemed strangely empty now. On the bed, the teddy bear forgotten in the rush. The first gift he had given her lay lonely. Sitting on the edge of the bed, the millionaire picked up the toy carefully. He remembered the day he had bought it, how uncomfortable he had felt entering a toy store alone for the first time in his life. How Sophia's smile upon receiving it had completely compensated for his discomfort. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was the hospital. Sir, said the nurse with urgency in her voice, the patient is asking for her daughter. She's very agitated, and the doctors fear that this could compromise her treatment. Tell her... The millionaire paused, searching for words that wouldn't increase her anguish. Tell her that Sophia is fine, and that we'll be with her soon. Another promise he didn't know if he could keep. But surrender was not an option. Not when he had finally discovered what really mattered in his life. With the teddy bear in one hand and the phone in the other, the millionaire made the call he never imagined making. He called his biggest rival in business, a man whose son was an influential judge in the county. I need a favor, he said, swallowing his pride, and I'm willing to pay any price. To get back his newfound family, no price would be too high. 3 days, 72 hours that seemed like an eternity. The millionaire had barely slept, dividing his time between the hospital where Sophia's mother was struggling to regain her strength and the endless meetings with lawyers, investigators, and influential contacts. In his office at the mansion, now transformed into an operations center, maps, documents, and photos covered the walls. A team of digital security experts worked incessantly to recover evidence that his former partner believed he had erased years. Ego, we found something, announced the team leader, entering the room in a hurry. Encrypted emails from 7 years ago, recovered from an old server. The millionaire grabbed the printouts with slightly trembling hands. There was all the conspiracy documented, explicit orders to permanently remove the millionaire's then-girlfriend from the scene, financial transactions disguised as business accidents, and the most shocking, detailed reports on the whereabouts of the woman and daughter during all those years. He always knew, murmured the millionaire, the cold anger giving way to a fury he had never experienced before. He always knew where they were. His lawyer, a man of considerable experience, seemed genuinely disturbed. "This goes beyond corporate fraud or obstruction of justice," he commented, flipping through the documents. "We're talking about serious crimes, kidnapping, deprivation of liberty, potentially even attempted murder, depending on how we interpret some of these orders." "And where does this leave us in relation to Sophia?" asked the millionaire, focusing on the immediate priority. "With this," the lawyer raised the documents, "we can prove that the complaint against you was retaliation from someone directly involved in serious crimes. And with the DNA test we performed yesterday, the DNA test, the scientific confirmation of what his heart had already known since he had seen the mother's complete medical record. Sophia was, without a doubt, his biological daughter." "The judge scheduled the hearing for this afternoon," continued the lawyer. "With this evidence and the testimony we obtained from the nurse at the shelter where they were hiding, we have a solid case." The millionaire nodded, checking his watch. For the 10th time that hour. "And her, how is she?" The lawyer knew exactly who he was referring to. "Our contacts in social services report that Sophia is physically well, but very emotionally shaken. She refuses to talk to anyone and has been having trouble sleeping." The pain of knowing that his daughter was suffering was almost physical. The millionaire took a deep breath, seeking to maintain the mental clarity needed for the next decisive hours. "I need to go to the hospital before the hearing," he decided. "She deserves to know what's happening." At the hospital, he found a surprising change. Sophia's mother was sitting in bed, visibly stronger than in the previous days. The color was beginning to return to her face, and her eyes, the same ones he saw in Sophia, had regained some of the sparkle he remembered from years ago. "The doctors are calling it a medical miracle," she commented with a small smile when he entered the room. "They say my response to treatment is exceeding all expectations." "You've always been a fighter," he replied, sitting beside the bed and holding her hand. "But we need to talk about Sophia." When he finished telling her about the forced separation and the imminent hearing, he saw silent tears streaming down her face. "He won't stop until he destroys us completely, will he?" she asked, referring to the former partner. "No," agreed the millionaire, "but he made a fatal mistake this time. He left tracks, and he used the legal system to try to get to us, the same system that we can now use against him." She squeezed his hand with surprising strength for someone in her condition. "Get our daughter back," she pleaded, with determination in her voice, "and then we'll make him pay for every day he stole from us." Those words, coming from the woman he had always known as gentle and understanding, demonstrated how much everyone had changed, how much they had lost, how much they had hardened. "I'll bring her back today," he promised, kissing her forehead. Before leaving, in the courtroom, the tension was palpable. The millionaire, always impeccably dressed, now presented deep circles under his eyes and an intensity in his gaze that intimidated even those accustomed to his presence. His former partner was present, surrounded by a team of expensive lawyers, his confident expression barely disguising his nervousness. Sophia's entrance into the room, led by the social worker, made the millionaire's heart skip a beat. She looked smaller, more fragile, with her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw him, she tried to run towards him but was gently restrained by the assistant. "Daddy!" she cried, stretching her arms out to him. That single word, "Daddy," said with such naturalness and desperation, provoked a murmur in the room. The millionaire swallowed the lump in his throat, unable to respond, but sustaining her gaze with all the strength and love he could convey. The judge, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, observed the scene carefully before initiating the proceedings. "We are here to determine whether the temporary guardianship granted should be revoked based on the new accusations," he began. and to evaluate evidence related to the identity and origin of the minor. The millionaire's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, before any discussion, I would like to present new elements that completely change the nature of this case. When the results of the DNA test were presented, along with the evidence recovered against the former partner, the atmosphere in the room changed drastically. The judge examined the documents with growing incredulity. "This is extraordinary," he commented finally. "If these allegations are proven, we are facing a much more serious criminal case." The former partner, seeing his plan crumble, stood up abruptly. "This is a farce! Fabricated documents!" he protested, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his panic. "Sir, I advise you to remain silent," warned his own lawyer, clearly alarmed by the turn of events. The judge turned to the social worker. Considering this new evidence and the obvious emotional bond between the child and her, he looked at the documents again. "Her biological father. I see no reason to maintain the separation. The temporary guardianship is restored, pending only formalization of permanent paternity." Sophia didn't wait any longer. Breaking free from the social worker, she ran across the room and launched herself into the arms of the millionaire, who lifted her effortlessly, embracing her as if he would never let her go again. "You came back," she sobbed, hiding her face in his shoulder. "You promised and you came back." "I will always come back for you," he replied in a low voice, only for her to hear. "Always." As he left the courthouse, carrying Sophia in his arms, the millionaire spotted several reporters waiting. The news had leaked, as was inevitable. The powerful businessman, the former partner detained for investigation, the lost and found daughter. It was the perfect story for the tabloids. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the little creature clinging to him, as if she feared being torn away again at any moment. What mattered was the woman in the hospital, regaining her strength, waiting to complete the family that had been stolen from them. The rest, the press, the lawsuits to come, the reconstruction of their lives could wait. "Is Mommy really alive?" asked Sophia for the third time as the car approached the hospital. Her small fingers played nervously with the hem of the new dress that the millionaire had provided for the occasion. "Yes, honey," he confirmed, still marveling at the ease with which the word honey now left his lips. He, who for years had been known for his coldness in personal relationships, and she's eager to see you. For 2 days, since Sophia's return to the mansion, the millionaire had carefully prepared the girl for the reunion. He had explained in simple terms that she could understand how her mother had been forced to hide, how they believed they were protecting each other by staying apart, and how a bad man had created that situation. "And are you really my dad?" asked Sophia, looking at him with her probing eyes, the same eyes that had captured him since their first encounter on the road. "Yes," he replied, feeling an overwhelming emotion as he said it aloud. "I'm your dad. I always have been, even when we didn't know it." Sophia nodded, absorbing the information with the peculiar mixture of innocence and wisdom that children possess. "I knew it was different," she said, after a moment of reflection. "When you took care of me, it wasn't like the other people who just pretended to care." The millionaire's heart squeezed at the realization that his daughter, at only 5 years old, was already able to distinguish between genuine care and obligation. A painful skill learned too early. In the hospital parking lot, the millionaire adjusted his tie, an automatic gesture of nervousness that he rarely displayed. This moment, the reunion of the mother with the daughter after weeks of agonizing separation, would have been emotional in itself, but the awareness that it was also the reunion of a family that had never had the chance to exist made everything even deeper. Taking Sophia by the hand, they crossed the hallways of the private hospital that was now under heavy security. Reporters were desperately trying to get details about the story that was beginning to leak to the press. The powerful businessman, the girlfriend everyone believed dead, the daughter he never knew he had. Stopping in front of the room, the millionaire knelt down to be at Sophia's height. "Ready?" he asked softly. Sophia took a deep breath, nodding with determination. He recognized in that gesture something of himself, the ability to face difficult situations with courage, even feeling fear inside. As they opened the door, they found Sophia's mother sitting in a chair near the window. The intensive treatment was beginning to show impressive results. She seemed stronger every day, although still far from full health. When she saw her daughter, her eyes instantly filled with tears. She stretched out her arms, unable to utter a word. Sophia remained paralyzed for a second, as if she didn't believe what she saw. Then, with a cry that contained months of suffering and hope, she ran into her mother's arms. "Mommy! Mommy!" The reunion was so intense that even the nurses who were watching discreetly from the door couldn't hold back their tears. Mother and daughter hugged each other as if trying to compensate for every second of separation, every night of fear, every tear shed. The millionaire observed the scene, maintaining a respectful distance, feeling simultaneously part of that moment and a privileged observer of something sacred. When Sophia's mother finally looked up to meet his gaze, he saw in those familiar eyes a world of emotions, gratitude, love, and something more, a silent request for him to join them. He approached cautiously, still uncertain about his place in that picture. "Come," called the woman he had never stopped loving, extending a hand towards him, while the other still embraced Sophia. "Our family is finally complete." Those words tore down the last barriers. The millionaire, a man who commanded financial empires with cold and calculated decisions, allowed himself to be completely vulnerable. He knelt beside the chair and enveloped the two in a hug that tried to express everything that words could never express. The grief for the lost years, the joy for the reunion, the promise to never separate again. Sophia, nestled between her parents, radiated a happiness that illuminated the entire room. "Now we're a real family," she declared, with the profound simplicity of children, like in the storybooks. The three laughed together for the first time, a sound that seemed to heal old wounds and build bridges to the future. In the weeks that followed, while Sophia's mother continued her treatment, the press was gradually informed about the basic aspects of the story. The millionaire, normally averse to personal exposure, understood that the narrative needed to be controlled, not only to protect his newly formed family, but also to ensure that the truth about the actions of his former partner came to light. The public's reaction was overwhelming. From a cold business villain, the millionaire came to be seen as a heroic figure, the father who had never given up, even without knowing he was one. The investigations against his former partner advanced rapidly, revealing a web of corruption and crimes that extended far beyond the family's personal case. On a sunny afternoon, while Sophia played in the hospital garden under the watchful eye of security guards, the millionaire and the girl's mother spoke in low voices about the future. "The doctors say I can be discharged next week," she commented, her voice stronger with each passing day. "But the treatment will still be long." "The mansion is being adapted," he replied, holding her hand delicately. "We'll have full-time nurses, equipment, everything necessary for your complete recovery." She smiled, observing Sophia through the window. The girl ran after a butterfly, her crystal-clear laughter filling the air, a sound that both had feared they would never hear again. "I still can't believe we're here," she confessed, "that we survived all this, that we have a second chance." The millionaire followed her gaze, contemplating the daughter he had almost lost without ever knowing. "We need to talk about what happened afterwards," he said, finally addressing the subject they had been avoiding. About the man you were forced to live with. She shuddered visibly, but nodded. He was one of your former partner's lackeys, a violent man who had faced legal troubles. He needed a wife and child to create an image of respectable family and access a family inheritance. It was a daily hell. Her voice faltered momentarily, but Sophia gave me strength to endure, to plan, to finally escape. He's being sought, guaranteed the millionaire, the contained anger showing through in his controlled voice. He won't escape justice. I don't want to live in fear anymore, she replied with surprising determination. I don't want our daughter to grow up looking over her shoulder. I want us to end this once and for all. The millionaire studied her face, thinner than in the past, marked by suffering, but with the same inner strength that had captivated him years ago. And we'll end it, he promised, leaning in to kiss her forehead. Together. The moment was interrupted by Sophia, who ran into the room with her hands cupped. "Look what I found," she exclaimed, carefully opening her hands to reveal a small, colorful beetle. "It's beautiful," commented the mother, with genuine enthusiasm for her daughter's discovery. The millionaire observed the interaction between mother and daughter, the way they communicated with glances and smiles, the love evident in every small gesture. It was a world to which he was still adapting, learning the silent language of family bonds. "Can I keep it in my room?" asked Sophia, looking hopefully at her father. "I think he would be happier in the garden where he has his family," replied the millionaire, surprising himself with the unlikely wisdom of his words. Sophia considered the answer for a moment, then nodded seriously. "You're right. Everyone should stay with their families." Later that day, after leaving Sophia sleeping under the care of the nurse, the millionaire drove back home when he received the call they had been expecting for weeks. His private investigator had located the man who had held mother and daughter captive for years. "He's trying to leave the country," informed the detective. "I have his exact location. What should I do?" The millionaire felt the weight of the decision. In a not-too-distant past, he would have ordered a relentless retaliation. Pure and simple revenge for the suffering caused to the woman he loved and the daughter he had never known. But now, with Sophia and her mother back in his life, with a family to protect and an example to give, the choice was clear. "Inform the authorities," he ordered. "Provide all the evidence. I want him to face official justice, not mine." As he hung up, he realized that a profound transformation had occurred within him. The man who lived to accumulate power and revenge now chose the path of legitimate justice for Sophia, for his family, for a new version of himself that he was still discovering. When the arrest was finally made, broadcast on national news, as part of the operation that took down a network of corporate and personal crimes, Sophia's mother cried in his arms, not from sadness, but from relief. Years of constant terror were finally over. "It's over," he whispered, hugging her while Sophia slept peacefully in the next room. "Now we can really start living." The next morning, in an impulsive decision completely contrary to his calculating nature, the millionaire cancelled all his meetings and took Sophia for a stroll in the park, something he had never done before. As she ran freely through the grass, laughing with the carefree abandon that only children possess, he felt a pure happiness that no business acquisition had ever given him. In a few days, her mother would be discharged from the hospital. The mansion was no longer the cold and impersonal place it once was. Colors, toys, laughter, and even a growing collection of children's drawings on the marble walls signaled the transformation. The financial empire continued to function, but for the first time, the millionaire delegated responsibilities without micromanaging every detail. There were more important things now. Taking Sophia to school, attending physical therapy sessions, with her mother, learning to be the father and the partner he had never had a chance to be. And looking at his family reunited against all odds, he finally understood the most valuable lesson that money could never buy. True power was not in control over others, but in the ability to love and protect those who mattered. A year later, the glass and steel mansion was unrecognizable. The garden, once meticulously manicured and formal, now included a colorful playground, a treehouse and flower beds where Sophia cultivated her own flowers under the patient supervision of her mother, who had regained much of her health. The millionaire watched the two from the terrace while finalizing an important call. The biggest project of his career was about to be launched. Not a corporate acquisition or a real estate venture, but a foundation to locate missing children and assist women victims of violence to rebuild their lives. "Everything is set for the official announcement tomorrow," informed his assistant over the phone. "The press is already buzzing with the rumors." "Great," he replied, hanging up as he saw Sophia waving enthusiastically for him to join them in the garden. He descended the stairs, still adjusting to the idea of being summoned to activities that didn't involve spreadsheets or negotiations. Domestic life, with its small joys and daily challenges, continued to be a constant discovery. "Daddy, look!" exclaimed Sophia, proudly raising a small pot. "My seed sprouted!" He knelt down to examine the tiny green shoots that emerged from the earth. "They're beautiful," he praised, feeling genuine fascination with the miraculous simplicity of growth, "and they're going to get even more beautiful." Sophia's mother, now officially his wife after an intimate ceremony held in the garden 6 months before, smiled as she observed the interaction between father and daughter. "She has your talent for making things grow," she commented, approaching. "Only she cultivates flowers while you used to cultivate companies." "Used to," he repeated, emphasizing the past tense. "My priorities have changed considerably." It was true. Although he still managed his businesses, the obsession with work had given way to a balance never imagined. Family dinners were sacred, business trips minimized, and when inevitable, always included video calls before Sophia went to bed. The girl, now 6 years old, had blossomed in the safe and loving environment. The trauma of the early years had not completely disappeared. There were still occasional nightmares and moments of insecurity, but child therapy and constant love worked wonders to heal the invisible wounds. "We have a surprise for you," announced his wife, exchanging a knowing look with Sophia. The girl ran inside the house, returning moments later with a package wrapped awkwardly in colored paper. "We made it together," she declared, holding out the gift with expectant eyes. The millionaire opened the package carefully, revealing a handmade photo album. On the cover, in colored letters, was written, "Our story, past, present, and future." As he flipped through the pages, he felt the emotion rise in his throat. The first leaves contained old photos recovered from his personal archives. Him and his then-girlfriend, young and in love, 7 years ago. Then there was an empty space with the inscription, "The Years We Lost," followed by recent photographs. The reunion at the hospital, Sophia on her first day at the new school, the simple wedding in the garden, birthdays, everyday moments captured with love. The last pages were blank, except for the first, which contained an ultrasound image. The millionaire looked at his wife, unable to formulate the question that hovered on his lips. "Surprise," she said, with tears of joy in her eyes. "We found out yesterday. Sophia is going to have a little brother or sister." Sophia jumped with excitement. "I'm going to be a big sister. I'll be able to teach them everything I know." The millionaire hugged the two, unable to express in words the avalanche of emotions that overwhelmed him. A second child, a new life, a chance to be present from the beginning this time. "Thank you," he whispered in his wife's ear, a simple word for an infinitely complex feeling. That night, after putting Sophia to sleep with the usual story, the millionaire joined his wife. On the terrace, the starry sky stretched out over them, the same sky he had contemplated alone for so many years, believing he had lost forever the chance of a full life. "Have you already chosen a name?" he asked, hugging her from behind as they watched the stars. "I was thinking of Hope if it's a girl," she replied, leaning on him, "because that's what we never lost, even in the darkest moments." The millionaire reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them there, the deserted road where he had almost run over a frightened child, Sophia's gaze that awakened something dormant in his heart, the impossible reunion with the woman he believed he had lost, the struggle to keep his family together against powerful forces that tried to separate them. "It's perfect," he agreed, kissing softly the top of her head. In the room next door, Sophia slept peacefully, holding the teddy bear that she never abandoned. Her nightmares had diminished considerably. In their place, colorful dreams about gardens, butterflies, and the family that was now growing a little more. The next morning, the foundation would be officially launched. The former partner and his accomplices faced lengthy court battles that would likely result in decades in prison. Justice, though slow, was running its course. More importantly, the family that almost never existed was now preparing to welcome a new member. The millionaire, watching his sleeping wife later that night, thought about how life could change completely in an instant, in the exact time of a sudden break on a deserted road. How seemingly small decisions could alter the course of entire destinies. How love, when true, found paths through the most impossible barriers. He who had built an empire based on cold calculations and relentless logic now understood the power of forces that could not be quantified in spreadsheets. Love, forgiveness, hope, redemption. And while the outside world still saw him as the powerful millionaire, within those walls, he was simply a man who had almost lost everything, who had received an extraordinary second chance, and who now dedicated every moment to being worthy of it. A father, a husband, a man rediscovering his humanity through the eyes of a child who had always been his daughter, even when neither knew it. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day. What would you do in the millionaire's place? Comment below and share this story with someone special.